fans out there of OH Report. I'm Joe Balogh. I've got over 600 wins. I've been to the state tournament, the most successful coach in the Mansfield area with wins, and now I'm on the media side. But let me tell you something about Joe. Joe has a temper. Back in the day, he loved to get upset at officials. I can't say the words that he would say on a Friday night because of media and violations. But Joe would take that coat off and say, "Get on it! You guys are terrible!" And he never got teed up because he was Joe Balogh, the Joe Show, even back in the day.
Thanks, David, for the intro. I know you always wanted to be me, but now you got to be me. Let's start the episode off by showing some love to the best high school basketball performances from this past week as I toss it over to Brian Skowronski, who's got the highlights.
All right, thanks, Joe. You know they say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, so you really got to give it up to David Sheldon. Pretty good Joe Balogh impersonation there. So, who were the imposters last week in the girls' sectionals, and who were the actual champion for the boys when the leagues all boiled down to the wire? Let's throw it back to last week and show you all the happenings there in this week's edition of the Weekly Rewind. Let's begin with 9th-seeded Lexington taking on 4th-seeded Shelby. Physical sectional semifinal, and that's Audie Albert with the putback bucket. One of the night's top highlights, though, had to be this Madison Barcelone-Delano Goodman connection. Incredible save and assists. Meanwhile, Ava Brown could not be denied at the rim, snatching every rebound in sight. She would finish from close range, but Sarah Reiser and the Lady Whippets, they had their say in the paint as well, walking away with a 58-45 victory to advance to the final at Edison. Carey was looking for the outright N10 title while Mohawk could earn a split. Blue Devils jump ahead early. Braden Young ankle breaker. Plus he's going to can the triple right here. They led it by 8 at the half. Mid-third quarter now, Carey still up 8, but Kane Heyman gets the hoop and the harm. This is going to cut it down to just a 5-point game. Start of the fourth quarter, though, and Austin Niederkor decides to take over. He would score 8 in the final stanza, including this upcoming backbreaker, as Carey would win the N10 outright, 48-31 your final. Both teams would earn some high seeds heading into sectional play. Senior night for Willard and Huron at the Haas in a game to decide an SBC Bay Division champ, and this game was back and forth throughout. Flashes would take their largest lead here at 6 with a trifecta from Robinson, his second in the half. Later in the third, game tied, and check out Max Dawson turn around Jay like he's Kobe. Tigers, though, would take the lead later in the frame. Dylan Holler, two-handed throwdown. He had a monster night, but this one would be more about Dawson and the Flashes, as Max would drop 25 of his game-high 34 in the second half to carry the squad to the Bay Division crown. Flashes would knock off Huron 63-61, avenging their only league loss of the season. 14 wins for them on the campaign. Now more to the girls' game. D3 sectional semifinal, Willard versus Upper Sandusky. The Lady Rams taking control early. Leah Kinley takes the Grace Walton feed. She's going to turn it into 3 points there. Later on, Addie Newman joining in on the action as it's an upper 14-zip run to start the game. They were on top 27-6 at the break. Second half, though, Willard finally getting some offense going. Cameron Weirs, she hits a 3 there, but it's just too much Upper Sandusky. All 5 of their starters would score 7+ points as they roll 47-29, advancing to the Shelby District Semi. To play the winner of this one between Clear Fork and Huron, Lady Colts, a very upper-leg start. Annika Labaki with the 3 from Crestline. They were on top 13-4 after 1. Second quarter now, CF continues to roll. Lily Wortman helping along a 9-0 run to end the half up 23-7, and that run would extend into the third. Labaki hitting the runner here to finish off a 13-0 run. Later on in the fourth, Wortman, who led all scorers with 18, catches the home run ball. She'll finish it off as Clear Fork finishes off Huron 44-22. They've got a date now coming up with Upper Sandusky on Thursday at Shelby. Rare sectional final matchup between two of the top 3 seeds in the district saw Mansfield Senior and Norwalk trading buckets early. Annalise Norris for TY at one end, now Brooklyn Davis at the other, high off the glass. We're all tied at the break, but in the third, they're up 3 are the Tigers. Make it forward, another coming up for Kirsten Bradley with the and one and a Tiger roar. Bradley setting up Kaya Wentz now from the corner, senior high, going up by a dozen in the fourth. But the top-seeded Truckers would come rolling back. Kenzie Smith off the bounce all the way to the rack, left-handed finish opposite side. Norwalk forcing 7 fourth-quarter turnovers, and they made the most of all of them, coming all the way back to stun Mansfield. 55-50, they win the sectional crown. Truckers scored 19 of the last 21 points. They will move on next to play Shelby. You can check out other tournament games that we streamed in their entirety, like the aforementioned Shelby Whippets, who knocked off Port Clinton for the sectional crown, and Mount Gilead, who made light work of Madison Christian. Those are on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, so head on over and give a look right after Joe's show, of course, because we still got plenty more on the way, including our area stat leaders in an interview with Jake Furr. That's right after this.
Welcome back to the Joe Show, where the high school basketball tournament is starting to heat up around the area. So we've got Jake Furr of the Mansfield News Journal here to break down some of the biggest storylines. So probably, Jake, as we take a look at the tournament, probably one of the most exciting districts is going to be the Division II district. I mean, we got a toss-up of teams. So I guess maybe if we take a look at some of the matchups that we potentially have, maybe give us your insight a little bit on what you feel about this bracket.
Yeah, I mean, you take any of them and see which one sticks to the wall, and you won't be wrong with who can win this thing. I think Mansfield Senior, they have a pretty good game with Norwalk starting off, but I think that team is playing maybe the hottest of any team right now. They picked up a win over Lexington in their season finale. Man, they've won some really good games here recently with Trotwood Madison too. So, I mean, I think that's a very, very dangerous team, and they're going to run into number 4 Bellevue in the sectional final if they can get past Norwalk. And man, that team is super scary right now. But all my eyes are over here at that Madison sectional with all of our teams in it.
I think if you take a look at that bracket too, there's an interesting possible matchup at the top with Sandusky and Sandusky Perkins.
Right.
Two teams are going to be very familiar with each other.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at that top bracket, a Mansfield Senior Bellevue matchup in the sectional final, and as I think we've said, Mansfield Senior seems to be a team that's kind of found their groove right now. But I think you go back, what you said is look at the bottom of the bracket. First of all, we have Ontario matching up with Clear Fork, which is an interesting matchup.
Right.
You know, Ontario beat them by 60 the first time, and then, you know, had to go to overtime to win. Clear Fork's, I think, a lot better in the second half of the season. And I think they're scary because, as you mentioned, they took 43 threes in their last game, and although they went 3 of 43, you know, if you throw a couple more in, that's a big difference in that game. So one of those two teams is going to get to match up with Shelby. At the bottom of that bracket, then you have Willard matching up with Gallion, with that winner playing Lex. So maybe give your thoughts a little bit about that.
I think that Willard and Gallion game may be the game of the kind of the sectional tournament. I think that's going to be one heck of a ball game with, you know, you got Cooper Kent over there at Gallion, who's scoring a bunch of points, and then Max Dawson is just phenomenal at Willard. I just wrote a story on him this morning, and I mean, the kid is great. I think he scored about 34 points in their SBC championship game clincher that they won over Huron. And whenever you have guys that are going to fill up the bucket like that, I think it's going to be a real high-scoring game, and one that could get them a lot of momentum going up against Lexington, who's shorthanded a couple guys and kind of coming off of a loss in their season finale. I wouldn't put them on upset alert, but that could be a lot closer of a game than what everybody's thinking.
Yeah, you may put Lex on upset alert. However, if you take a look, their 4 losses are to teams that all had really great seasons.
Right.
I think you have in there New Philly, St. Mary's Memorial, Mansfield Senior, and OG. I would doubt if anybody in that sectional has played the schedule that Lex plays. And plus, they played four games in 8 days. All of them were on the road. The concern would be, for Lex, would be, they have several players that are going to be out until probably the district final. And then also they had an injury to Hudson Moore in that senior high game. So if Hudson Moore cannot play, I think that would be a big loss for the Minutemen. So we take a look at this bracket, though. Probably one of the best players, Alex Brushgotter.
Yeah.
Can he put Shelby on their back and carry them?
I really do. I've seen this kid play quite a few times, and I'm impressed more and more each game. He just has all the fine tools, and I think that's kind of what gives Shelby my edge in this entire thing to come out of it. Just, you're going to have the best player on the floor every single night. So, if it's a 2-point ball game coming down to the wire, your team's down 2. You say, hey, Alex, go get us a bucket and tie this thing up, or go win it for us, and more than likely he's going to be able to do that. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Is Shelby the favorite to come out of that just because of Alex Brushgotter?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
All I guess you can tell fans, if you want to go see some exciting basketball games, head to this district.
Yeah.
To go even into the initial sectional games, but go to the sectional finals, because you're going to see some great games. So let's go on and move to the Division III tournament at Norwalk.
Yeah.
So we have Crestview is the number 2 seed there. I think Cardinal Stritch is the number 1 seed out of Toledo coming there. So give us some initial thoughts about, especially, I guess, Crestview at the top of this bracket.
Man, if you would have told me just by looking at the teams who are in that top bracket that Crestview was number 2, I would have called you a liar, because it seemed like everybody jumped on Crestview. You got Winford and Genoa in that sectional semifinal game, and the winner of that goes on to play Crestview. It's the number 6 against the number 4 to go play the number 2. It was like almost everybody just gravitated towards them, which it kind of stinks, but that's kind of is what it is.
And I think that Genoa-Winford matchup's an interesting matchup.
Yeah.
Genoa, I think, finished second in their league behind a very good Rossford team.
Yeah.
And Winford, it struggled a little bit late here at the end of the year, but coming into the tournament off a game against Buckeye Central where they made 17 threes.
Right.
So a team that can shoot it like that's very, very scary in the tournament. And that's going to be a tough sectional matchup, a sectional final matchup for the Cougars.
Right.
Because your concern there, too, is sometimes, when you play a game, which that game between Genoa and Winford's probably going to be a really hard-fought game, sometimes that momentum can really carry you into that sectional final.
Right.
We've had that happen to us, before that you played. So the Cougars are not going to necessarily have an easy road with that.
Right.
If we take a look at the bottom of the bracket, what kind of pops out there at you?
I think it's Cardinal Stritch. I think they can kind of cruise.
Yeah.
They can put it in cruise control. They're going to play the winner of Edison and Lakota. Then they'll probably get Margaretta there in that sectional final, or the district semifinal, I think. Either them or Oak Harbor. I know Western Reserve's down a little bit, but man, he's done a phenomenal job down there.
I just talked to Sheldon in the tournament.
Right.
That they'll be really prepared. But I guess if you take a look at this, you're probably saying Cardinal Stritch is going to be there. The top of that bracket, Crestview has a little bit tougher road to go.
Yeah, it's anybody's game. I think it could be Crestview, it could be Huron, could even be Genoa that makes it out of that whole thing.
Well, you bring up Huron.
Yeah.
I mean, Huron, tournament-tested team from a year ago,
Right.
a lot of guys back. And as I said, Dylan Holler, probably the best player in this district.
Yeah.
And I think, as you mentioned before, with Alex Brushgotter, when you have a player like that, a guy like that can kind of put you on their back and carry you. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I would say Cardinal Stritch, and then you're probably looking Huron-Crestview matchup. That's going to be a great district semifinal game to play.
Yeah, definitely.
And so let's move to the Division IV at Willard. And if we go to the Division IV at Willard, probably two teams that stick out.
Yeah, I think I don't see any real scenario where it's not Colonel Crawford and Lucas in the district final. I think Colonel Crawford will probably run into Mansfield Christian. Could be South Central, Mansfield Christian. I know those two teams played this year, and I think South Central beat them. Danbury's even pretty good with Coach Diebler up there, who's kind of running and gunning still. So that top one, I think Colonel Crawford has a little bit tougher of a road to a district final, but at the same time, I don't think they're going to really have any problems.
I mean, the concern you have with Crawford is at times they just have struggled to score.
Yeah.
But if you take a look, they got 7 losses. Really, I think the only game that they kind of got blown out of was their game, I think, at Mohawk.
Yeah.
I think the other loss they had was maybe a 10-point loss, but then they had 5 losses that the total was 10 points.
Right.
It came down to possessions. So you take a look also with Crawford, they got a player in Braxton Baker, kind of that same player that we talked about with Holler and Brushgotter, a guy that can carry you. And the thing that Crawford has, which is the same thing Lucas has, great tournament experience,
Yes.
With coming back. So if we look at that bottom of the bracket, as we mentioned, Lucas has probably got to be the team.
Yeah.
Tom's brothers, and the other part, they're coming into this district tournament, a little bit of chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
Really probably wanting that matchup with Crawford.
Definitely, yeah. 3-point loss during the regular season. I think I don't think they're overlooking anybody by any means, but I think they're looking forward to that. But they're going to cruise to a sectional championship. They'll have St. Pete's on Tuesday, and then New London, who was one of the bottom seeds. So you got a 13 and 14 seed as your opponents to a sectional final. I think they're going to be able to cruise to that. But on the other side of it, I mean, Monroeville could give them a little bit of a game. I think Seneca East, just kind of seeing what they did against Crawford. Crawford beat them by double digits both times. I think they should be able to handle them pretty easily. But Monroeville was a team that I saw give Crestview a game twice.
Mm-hmm.
And Crestview did end up beating them. And then again, Lucas did beat Crestview during the season. So kind of take that for what it's worth.
And a little bit of difference with there is with a lot of the other brackets that we see, you see teams matching up for a second or a third time.
Right.
Lucas, they played St. Pete's, but they could play some teams that they haven't seen or haven't seen them. So sometimes that's interesting because you don't really know the strength of each league that they played in. I mean, I know Lucas's league's a little bit down, but Lucas has played a really good non-league schedule.
Yeah.
I know this week's a busy week for you. It's going to be a busy week for us, I guess for me, kind of the first time. But I think for fans, it's an exciting time. So I think anytime you can get out and watch high school basketball this week as you get sectional finals and then get into the districts, a lot of fun to have.
Definitely. This is the absolute best time of the year to be a sports in sports media now that you're on this side of things. I mean,
not quite as nerve-wracking as coaching when you're not only as a coach, you're prepared for that first game, but then you're always once you get that preparation done, which is a couple days before you play that game. I mean, you're already starting to try to take a look at your next game because your turnarounds are usually pretty short.
Right.
So it's not quite as stressful here doing this job. So,
yeah.
Jake, appreciate you coming in, and we look forward to talking to you again down the road.
Yeah, man.
Braxton Baker of the Colonel Crawford Eagles, here with this edition of Around the Arena. So, you know, Braxton, you grew up here as Colonel Crawford Eagle and have had a great career here. What's it meant playing for Colonel Crawford?
It's been a lot of fun. You know, the whole community shows up, seems like every game, and you know, away games will sometimes have more fans than the home team there. So the community that we have is just amazing. You know, I think our home games doesn't compare to any teams around here. Just the community that we have, and my cousin, he played, Austin Smith, he played in
He gave me a lot of problems.
and I remember coming to a game when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and I don't remember much of it, but I just remember it was always packed. And it was just an awesome atmosphere, and it still is today.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this. This gym's one of the unique gyms to play in, and you know, Crawford, you know, built a new school, but they kept this gym, which is probably one of the best decisions they made. What's it like playing in this facility?
It's awesome. You know, our student section is amazing, and that makes it really cool. Playing, they pack the house every night, and like you're saying, I'm glad we didn't get rid of build a new one. It would have ended up being smaller or something. So I'm glad we kept this gym. It's an awesome place to play. It's packed every Friday, Saturday night, whatever day we're playing.
You know, I think as players growing up, players have people that influence them a lot as far as, you know, their desire and to play basketball. Who's been like your biggest influence in your career?
Probably my dad. You know, he's always pushed me to be great, and just also just being competitive. You know, I've always wanted to try to be my best at everything that I've done. So, and also growing up watching the NBA, college basketball, just certain players that, you know, I've wanted to play like.
Who would be a player you'd like to play that you like to play like? I mean, like who's a player that influences you?
Luke is one of my favorite players in the NBA. You know, he's not the most athletic like me, but he can still score on you. I like Luka, and then KD also, because he's going to shoot over you. So those are probably my two favorite players to watch in the NBA.
You know, you played on some really great teams here. Played on one of the best teams ever in Crawford history a year ago. Kind of what's been the difference or the adjustments you've had to make from last year to this year?
This year I had to learn how to come more off the dribble. You know, last year it was mostly just catch and shoot, because Mason and Carter would create for me. But this year I've had to score off the dribble and learn how to. I've never gone against being face guarded before, so that's something I've had to learn this year. And so that's been kind of new, but I'm getting a lot better at it as the season's going on. But yeah, mostly just off the dribble and then learning against the face guard.
Favorite thing about playing basketball?
Favorite thing? There's a lot, but if I had to pick one, probably just being with all my best friends, playing basketball together. There's nothing like it. Winning with them and everything that comes with it. It's a lot of fun.
Outside of basketball, like what's a favorite thing you like to do?
Probably just hang out with my friends. You know, like doing whatever, going to their house or going out to eat, whatever. Hang with my friends and family.
Speaking of going out to eat, what's your favorite food?
Favorite food? Probably pizza. Probably pizza, because there's a lot of different kinds of pizza that you can have, and it's hard to mess it up. So.
And you got a pretty good family background with different kinds of pizza too. Played a great career, but toughest player maybe you played against, whether it was in high school or maybe AAU that you can remember.
Toughest player, probably last year, Colin White, OG in the regional finals. He was really hard to guard, and for most of the game we couldn't stop him. So definitely probably Colin White.
He's a pretty good player. Best memory of your high school career?
Definitely last year, Western Reserve coming back. You know, it seemed like the game, everyone thought the game was over, down 17, 18 points, and next thing you know, we're run celebrating. It was an awesome feeling.
We were just talking about that the other day, like the last 2 minutes, we're still trying to figure out how that happened.
I know, I still don't know how it did. It's crazy.
A last question. When this season's over, it's the end of your high school career, what's What are you going to miss the most?
What am I gonna miss the most? Probably just playing for Colonel Crawford. You know, it doesn't that beats just the community that we have and just the support that we get from all the fans. It's amazing. I mean, I love it, and I'm gonna miss it a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's Around the Arena with Braxton Baker. Thanks, Braxton.
Thank you.
Well, David, you grew up in a basketball family, played for your dad at Winford, went and played at Bluffton College for a really good coach, Guy Neal. However, I want you to talk a little bit about that your journey really did start as a basketball coach. Tell people a little about your journey after you got out of college.
You know, I went to Bluffton College and I was a double major. Joe, like you said, I was in business and sports management. And my father said, why do you want to go into education? I was the oldest of, 6 kids. And he said, you need to do something different, this education coach. And so when I got out, I was in the NBA and not playing, of course. It was on the business side. I started in Charlotte with the Hornets. I was in ticket sales. And before that, I did an internship in Cleveland at Gund Arena at the time with the minor league hockey team. Well, that guy then went to Orlando Magic and he said, hey, I'd like you to come down here and be a manager. I went down and managed the sales staff in Orlando for two and a half years. And it was fantastic. It's when Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill came at the time. And then I was like, you know what? I'm making great money for a 22-year-old, but it's just not fulfilling anything. So at the time, I was at the NBA meetings in Chicago, and I went to the Cavs executives, and I got a job in Cleveland, and a little bit different advertising. I spent a year in Cleveland, but at the time, I was getting my education license because I ultimately wanted to teach and coach. But it was a great experience. I did it when I was single and got to meet some unbelievable players and people. Down in Magic, I played golf with Julius Erving, Dr. J, and scrambles with clients. It was just an unbelievable experience and memories that'll last forever. But it's the best move I ever made, coming back and working with kids on a daily basis.
So what made you make that decision?
I just think, I wanted to do what my dad did. My dad never went to work a day of his life in education for 34 years. And it was work in the business world. It didn't matter how much you were selling, how much money you were making. They always want more. Just like we do as coaches. We want to win. That was the competitive spirit I had with ticket sales and advertising. But I wanted to work with kids. And I saw my dad never work a day in his life. And that ultimately brought me back. And, I started my career as an assistant coach at Bucyrus. Todd Martin was the head coach, and it's like the circle of life. Now he's the superintendent here, and me the head coach, and I'm the treasurer. And it's just, it's amazing how different things can come to you in life.
Well, I know your dad was a tremendous influence as far as coaching, but all of us kind of have people that have influenced this, or, whether it be, high school coaches, college coaches, or whatever. Maybe talk to us a little bit about some of the people, including your dad, that influenced your coaching philosophy a little bit.
Number one's my father. I grew up in the gym and diapers, just like my 2 daughters have with myself and my wife. And my father's influence, it was second to none. And my dad was hard on me. My high school days were not fun. We'd go home and it got a little ugly at times. But I look back and it's the best thing ever because it turned me into a person. So number one's my dad. And then I can't even name all the coaches. It's all the high school coaches that I got to sit in at a young age on scouting trips. In the locker room, hearing the stories, hearing what they do, changing film, scouting reports, and I can list them. I mean, a big one is Joe. Joe, to this day we talk, and even when we were coaching each other, I would call, what do you think of this? Dave Fralick, Steve Willman, Paul Wayne, Steve Moore, Steve Gray, and the list goes on. I'm forgetting people, and I hate to name names, but the most important have been high school coaches, because you can go talk to college, but it's not the same as what we do and deal with at the high school level, and those have had the hugest impact. And 21 years of coaching now, and those are the guys I still talk to. The current coaches, probably the closest is my brother. We talk all the time and talk how he's dealing with us. And then you got Joe Bettingfield, Dave Hershey, that are still coaching to this day. But I still call the old timers because I'm a little old school, and there's nothing wrong with that. The way we approach the game.
You got the job here at Crawford, what, is it 19 years ago?
17
years ago. What's made this a special place to coach?
Well, number one is we've had great players. We were very fortunate. When I got here, we had a sophomore by the name of Austin Smith. And I knew he had a chance to be pretty good, watching film, doing research beforehand. And then in 2009, that first team, we got to the regional, the first time ever in Crawford history. We beat Winford at Mansfield Senior, I can remember to this day. And I think, getting that winning going and, that group got this going. And then the elementary stuff, everything we've done, we've had kids buy in, and it's just went off from there. And the interesting thing is, look at year 17, Austin Smith, his first cousins with Braxton Baker. So now I'm coaching Braxton. His mom and dad own Baker's Pizza, and it's come full circle. And I think the second is I've had unbelievable administrative support. I'm tough on kids. I tell kids no. I do, and I've had great administrative support because, every parent thinks their child's the most important, and I understand that now, having two girls. But sometimes we tell them no, and they go to administrator and they get the same answer. I think that's a big key to be successful this day and age. You've got to have administrative support because sometimes as coaches, we're the only people that tell kids no.
Last question. You've had some great tournament runs here. You've completed this regular season. Now you're getting prepared for tournament. Maybe give our audience a little bit of an insight. What do you do anything differently as far as when you start preparing for tournament?
It's just like when we prepare for regular season. It doesn't matter if we're playing league or non-league. We have intense scouting reports, breakdowns, everything. But now we really talk about, you get to this level, every possession is so important because there's no tomorrow. And the farther you go in the tournament, it comes down to 1-2 possessions in a game. So we talk about valuing each possession, both ends of the floor, and our guys do a great job of preparing, knowing what's going to happen, and I've got unbelievable assistant coaches to help. Our JVs now are, St. Mary's or Plymouth. They're not Colonel Crawford. They're preparing of whoever we're playing. So I just think, it's every possession is so important because there's no tomorrow, when you look at tournaments. And the biggest thing for us is the tradition of success. 11 straight sectional titles and the 5 regionals. These guys have grown up in that environment and they want to leave their legacy, we always say. And the next one is the 2023, but we got a tough district, tough sectional all the way through, and you guys got to go one game at a time. The most important is Friday night, whether we play St. Mary's or Plymouth.
Great. Thanks for giving us some insight, and as always, best of luck.
Thanks, Joe B.
Yep.
Sheldon just topped the 300-win milestone this season, all with Colonel Crawford. Now it's time to see which boys players won regular season crowns in our final edition of Area Stat Leaders. Take it away, Hayden.
Well, hey everyone, thank you Coach Balogh, and welcome to the final Stat Leaders update for this season. Boys regular season just wrapped up this weekend, and last week, if you missed it, we crowned our girls regular season Stat Leaders champions. That's what we're going to do on the boys side of things today. Boys tournament starting off this week, so we're going to crown our regular season champions. We'll be starting off with rebounding, and coming in at number 5 is Baden Forup out of Lexington. Finishes in the 5th position, 9.64 rebounds per game throughout the regular season. Lexington gonna have kind of one of those tough matchups. In the first round, they'll face either Gallion or Willard. At number 4, Jeffrey Jones, 10.1 rebounds per game out of Marion Harding. Jeffrey did a nice job of hovering on the list the second half of the season and only progressed upward, so he finishes in our 4th position. At number 3, Jacob Matty out of Colonel Crawford, 10.3 rebounds per game during the regular season. Colonel Crawford is the number 1 seed in their tournament field this season. At number 2, Carson Myers out of River Valley, 11.1 rebounds per night for the Viking of River Valley. And your boys champion in rebounding for the regular season is Sam McMillan at 11.9 rebounds per game, just shy of 12 for the Winford Royals. Congratulations to Sam. This guy's been getting it done all season long, has really only fallen to about that 3rd or 4th spot, hovered around the top all season, and took home our regular season rebounding championship. Now we'll transition over to scoring, and we'll start at number 5. Matt Bland, 20.7 points per game from Mount Gilead. Mr. Bland won the KMAC Player of the Year in the Knox Memorial Athletic Conference. He hovered around the top spot, some on the bottom, even took a few weeks off the list, but ultimately finishes at 5. Congratulations, Mr. Bland, on your award this year. At number 4, Carson Myers, 21 even points tonight out of River Valley. At number 3, Alex Bruscotter finishes in our third spot at 21.4 points a night for Shelby. At number 2, Max Dawson, 24.7 points per game. This is one of those, the 1-2 thought it could have gone either way, but out of Willard and Max Dawson, they won the SBC Bay Division this year with a 2-point win over Huron. Max, one of those special gifted guys. Certainly not the last time you're going to hear his name, just a junior. Congratulations to Max. But at number 1, taking home the scoring leader championship for the regular season, Mr. Jaden Jeffries, the Madison Ram, 27 points per night. He's going to have a big game tonight. They take on number 10, Springfield, in their opening round of the tournament. But Jaden Jeffries, just one of those kids that is so hard not to like. Plays the right way. He's got a lot of talent. Congratulations, Jaden, on taking home our scoring title for this year. And finally, our final category of assists, coming in at number 5, chose the right time to bust onto the list at the end of the year. Isaac Mason, 4.2 assists per game out of Seneca East. This is a guy that you heard a ton about last year, averaged almost 30-some points per game throughout the whole regular season. Still doing great things on the offensive side this year. Kind of well-rounded this year. 4.2 assists per game, and I know he's hovering right around that 16.17 point per game mark. So Isaac Mason, your 5th on the list. At number 4, Alex Bruscotter, 5 even assists per night for the Shelby Whippet. They look to have a successful tournament run this year. Dealt with some adversity there at the end of the year. Obviously lost to Lexington, but that's one of those matchups we could see again for a district semifinal. At number 3, we got a tie. It'll be a tie for the 3rd and 2nd spot between Jax Wanger and Kanan Allen, both averaging 5.3 assists per night. Jax reigns out of Northmore, and Mr. Allen from Winford, both incredible passers and both tied for those 2 spots right there. Congratulations to both of them. But number 1, taking home the assist crown on our stat leaders for the regular season, is Mr. Chase Ebert at 6 even assists per night out of River Valley. I want to give a huge congratulations to Chase. Haven't seen River Valley play in person yet this year. Know they had one of those thrilling double OT games against Shelby, and 6 assists per night. That's spectacular. In a high school game, you don't always see them averaging that much throughout the regular season. And Mr. Ebert, I think it was just after a weekend, got his way on this list and never left it. So Chase Ebert out of River Valley takes home your assist championship for the regular season. So those are your regular season boys stat leaders champions for the categories of assists, scoring, and rebounding. And that wraps up the stat leaders updates on the Joe Show for the rest of the year with 1 episode left. So at this time, we'd just like to say thank you to all the coaches and statisticians around the area, or anyone else who shared stats with me along the way. This update would not be possible without you. And just want to say a huge congratulations to not only all of our champions, but anyone who made the list throughout the season, anyone who hovered right around. We just did top 5 this season. I know in the past we've done top 10, so just want to say that if you weren't on this list, we still see you. We recognize and applaud your averages throughout the regular season. It's safe to say that we are very blessed to have great basketball around the area on both the girls and boys side. So thank you for coming along on this ride with me this season for the stat leaders. And I'm excited now because we're going to hand out a few more awards as Coach B talks about his top area coaching awards.
Welcome back to the Joe Show, where it's time to recognize some of the best coaching performances in the area on this week's edition of Coach B's Ballers. Let's take a look at some of the top coaching performances this season. We'll break it down into small schools, the Division 3s and 4s, and the big schools, Division 1 and 2. So in the small school division, the first coach we'd like to recognize is Taylor Eisman of the Lucas Cubs. Last season, the Cubs were 19-5 and 9-1 in the Buckeye, mid-Buckeye Conference, and it's tough to repeat outstanding back seasons. However, Coach Eisman has just done that. The Cubs repeated as mid-Buckeye Conference champions with an undefeated 10-0 record and have an 18-4 overall record. They're the number 2 seed in the district, looking for a possible rematch with the Colonel Crawford Eagles. Also in the small school division, John Kurtz has led the Crestview Cougars to their best record in school history. The Cougars finished the season at 20-2 and were perfect in the Firelands Conference with a record of 14-0. Last season, the Cougars were 12-11 overall and 8-6 in the Firelands Conference. Crestview is the number 2 seed in the Division II Norwalk District and will play a sectional championship this Friday. In the large school division, I have 3 coaches I would like to recognize. The first is Joe Bedingfield of the Willard Crimson Flashes. The Flashes moved up to Division II from Division III by the slightest of margins. The Flashes are 14-8 overall and finished 9-1 as the champions of the SBC Bay Division. Willard played a challenging schedule this season and has finished the regular season winning 8 of their last 9 games. Greg Galloway of the Shelby Whippets is only his 2nd season as the varsity head coach of the Whippets. He has a 2-year record of 38-7 and back-to-back Mid-Ohio Athletic Conference championships. The Whippets love to play an up-tempo game, and they entered the tournament as the number 2 seed in the Division II Ashland District. Also in the rugged Division II Ashland District are the Lexington Minutemen under head coach Scott Hamilton. The Minutemen completed an outstanding regular season with an 18-4 record, and those 4 losses being to 17-5 St. Mary's Memorial, led by 6'8 Ohio State signee Austin Parks, 17-5 New Philly, 19-3 Ottawa Glandorf, and 15-7 Mansfield Senior. Coach Hamilton has done a great job of mixing a veteran group of upperclassmen with a young core of players. That's this week's Coach B's Ballers, Coaches of the Year this year. Welcome to Storytime with Coach B. Today's edition, we're going to talk about tournament time. And I really don't have the words to describe what tournament is like, but I had the opportunity and I guess the privilege that during my coaching career, we were able to win 20 sectional titles, 7 district championships, went to a regional runner-up once, and then won a regional in 1995 to advance to the state Final Four. The excitement of those few weeks is special for players, for coaches, parents, students, and the Ontario community. So today what I'd like to do is take a look back at 2 of those teams, and one team being a team that we probably really did not ever expect was going to make it to the regionals. So that team was my last district championship team in 2011. We finished the regular season at 13-7, but we were 12-2 in the North Central Conference, which was enough to win a conference championship. At that time, we were Division III. So we played our Division III sectional at Lexington. We beat Bucyrus 57-41 to win the sectional championship. And then we advanced to the district tournament at Mansfield Senior. In the semifinal of the district, we matched up against a Huron Tiger team, which I think everybody's familiar with Huron. They've had great basketball tradition. And we pulled out a 55-52 victory. We had a very balanced scoring attack that night, led by Spencer Shepard and Drew Smith, who had 10 points apiece. And then Derek Zeider scored 9 points that night. We matched up in the district final at Senior High against a very good Gibsonburg team. And I guess maybe a big advantage for us in that district was we only had to travel 10 minutes down the road to Senior High. Huron had to travel about an hour. Gibsonburg probably had to travel about an hour and a half to get to that district final game. We won that district final 71-63 behind Derek Zeider's 22 points. And Derek was the Division III District 6 Player of the Year that year. He was followed up again with Spencer Shepard with 13 points, and then we had another post player that scored 13 points in that game named Brian Wendling. And again, balanced scoring was kind of the key to this team, as a perimeter player named Kevin Jujuda scored 12 points. We advanced to the regionals that year, which were held at Anderson Arena in Bowling Green, which was a great place to play. Probably seated about 4,500 people, maybe a little more, but the fans were right on top of you on the floor. And we were in that regional with Archibald, Ottawa Glandorf, and Columbus Afrocentric. So those are all teams that are very familiar with tournament success. We matched up with Archibald, and Archibald was a tremendous defensive team, really shut us down. We lost 53-30, while Afrocentric knocked out OG, and then Afrocentric defeated Archibald in the regional final to advance to the state tournament that year. So that was probably a year that maybe even us as a coaching staff didn't really think that we could make it. I think a lot of people probably didn't think we could make it. But I think the one thing I do remember about that year is our coaches, is we took a look that once we looked at the tournament bracket, we said, hey, there's not really anybody in this district tournament that, we do not match up with. So the big thing was our kids were confident enough, and anytime you're able to make it to the regional special, and as I mentioned, that was the last time we were able to win a district championship. A team that really had high expectations, on the other hand, would be our 1997 team. In 1996, this team went 15-6. They were 10-2 in the North Central Conference. So in 1997, we returned 3 players that started as sophomores: Joe Cochran, Adam Davis, and Matt Smith. Along with those 3, we had 2 seniors coming back, Tony Dorsey and Jared Smith. So our coaching staff was really excited about the possibilities that this team could have. Matt Smith was 6'8", eventually went on to play Division I at Robert Morris University. Adam Davis was a sharpshooting guard, and Joe Cochran was just one of those players who did everything for our team. Just kind of that tough guy, the enforcer for our team. At the point guard, we had Jared Tim, a steady left-hander, who's now a lawyer. So I think anytime you're able to have a guy that turns out to be a lawyer as your point guard, you're in a pretty good situation. And then Tony Dorsey was just a 6'4", tremendous athlete. So we started the season with 6 wins in a row, and then we played in a holiday tournament at Gahanna-Lincoln with Gahanna-Lincoln, Cleveland Heights, and Zanesville. Those teams are all Division I schools, and we were Division III. We matched up with Gahanna in the first game, and I remember thinking we needed to win this game because I did not want to be the team that was going to have to play the loser of Cleveland Heights and Zanesville the next night, because whoever lost that game was really going to come in with a purpose to play, and we did not want to face either one of those teams coming off of a loss. So fortunately, we pulled out a 62-60 win over Gahanna, as Adam Davis scored 22 and Tony Dorsey had 21. So the next night, we matched up with Cleveland Heights, who was one of the top-ranked teams in Division I in the state. They had several players who went on to play Division I college basketball, with one of them being Damon Stringer, who played at Ohio State. I believe we jumped out to a 10-0 lead in that game, and then we woke the giant up, as they said. Cleveland Heights went on to defeat us 90-66, and after that loss, we proceeded to go on a 16-game winning streak the rest of the season. We finished the regular season with a record of 19-1, and we were the number 2 team in the Associated Press Division III final poll. We beat Upper Sandusky in the sectional final, and then knocked off Edison in the district semifinal. The district final was a matchup with our rival Winford, and we knocked them off 62-46 to advance to the regional. In the regional semifinal, we beat Lorraine Clearview 59-54 to advance to the regional final versus Patrick Henry. In the Patrick Henry game, we led pretty much the entire way until about the last 3 minutes of the game, and we lost a heartbreaker 45-43. Talent-wise, this may have been the most talented team I had ever coached in my career. One thing I do remember about this game many years later, though, during this season, my oldest son, Steven, who's now, I believe, 34 years old, was, I believe, 8 years old at the time and was a ball boy for our team. And probably about 10 years after this season was completed, I was going through some things in our basement and found a box of stuff that he had done in elementary school. And I came across a journal that he was writing during that season. So it was interesting as I started reading, much of the journal was about that season. It would have things like, hey, we play Winford tonight, big game, and then the next week would be, hey, we beat Winford, so forth. So looking at one of the things that he put in this journal after the Patrick Henry game, or preceding the Patrick game, I guess after the Patrick Henry game was, it said something like this: we played Patrick Henry last night and we lost. I cried, but I punched a chair in the locker room and I felt much better. That kind of sums up what a tournament run is like. The interesting part to finish this story is that Patrick Henry went on to win the Division III state title, and Cleveland Heights went on to win the Division I state title. So our only 2 losses out of a 23-2 season were to 2 state championships, 2 state championship teams. That concludes Story Time by Coach B this week.